What if the history we trust is only the surface layer of a much older, unfinished story? Across the world, archaeologists have uncovered objects and structures that simply do not fit the timelines we are taught to accept. A stone egg in North America drilled with machine-like precision. Egyptian carvings that resemble modern aircraft. A prehistoric creature that refuses every category of evolution. These are not isolated curiosities, they are anomalies, quiet physical contradictions buried in museums, stone, and sediment. If even a few of these discoveries are genuine, then the real question is not what they are, but what part of our past has been forgotten, ignored, or deliberately left out. Modern archaeology is built on timelines. Layers of soil are measured, dates are calculated, and history is arranged into a clean sequence, primitive to advanced, simple to complex. This structure gives us comfort. It suggests progress is linear and that the past is fully understood, cataloged, and closed. But scattered across the world are discoveries that do not cooperate with this order. They exist physically, measurably, and undeniably, yet they resist explanation. These anomalies are often dismissed as coincidences, misinterpretations, or outright hoaxes, not because they have been disproven, but because they introduce questions that established frameworks are not designed to answer. Archaeology, like any science, depends on patterns. When an object appears outside those patterns, it becomes easier to isolate it than to reconsider the system itself. What makes these discoveries especially unsettling is not their mystery alone, but their consistency. Again and again, we find the same themes repeating across continents and eras. Precision where crude tools were expected, complexity where simplicity was assumed, and evidence of planning, symbolism, or engineering long before such capabilities were believed possible. These are not legends passed down through myth. They are stone, metal, bone, and text, materials that can be touched, dated, and analyzed. Some challenge our understanding of human technology. Others question the linear model of evolution. A few suggest that knowledge may have appeared, peaked, and vanished more than once in our past. In several cases, the discoveries were not hidden in remote jungles or deep oceans, but found beneath cities, inside temples, or displayed openly in museums, quietly labeled, rarely discussed. It is important to be clear, this is not a rejection of science, nor an argument for fantastical explanations. The real issue is far more subtle. These discoveries reveal the limits of certainty. They expose moments where evidence exists, but conclusions do not. Where questions are real, but answers remain incomplete. History is not only written by those who survive, but by what survives. When civilizations collapse, their libraries burn, their technologies decay, and their knowledge fragments. What remains may look impossible only because the context that once explained it is gone. The following discoveries do not offer a single alternative history. Instead, they form a pattern, one that suggests the human story, and even the story of life itself, may be more complex, more fragile, and more interrupted than we have been taught to believe. And with that in mind, we begin with a small object found in the soil of North America, an artifact whose precision raises a question no timeline can easily answer. 1. The Lake Winnipesaukee Stone Egg. In the summer of 1872, laborers digging post holes near Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire uncovered a small object that immediately stood out from the surrounding soil. It was not a tool, not a weapon, and not debris from any known settlement. What they found was a stone, smooth, oval, and carefully shaped, about the size of a chicken egg. At first glance, it appeared simple. Closer inspection revealed something far more troubling. The stone was polished to a level of smoothness rarely seen in prehistoric artifacts. Its surface was engraved with a series of symbols, human faces, geometric patterns, straight lines, and circular forms. None of these markings match the artistic language of Native American cultures known to have lived in the region. There were no comparable artifacts, no stylistic parallels, and no oral histories that could account for its presence. The deeper researchers looked, the stranger it became. Geological analysis showed that the stone was made of quartzite, a material not native to New Hampshire. This meant it had been transported from a distant location, possibly hundreds of miles away. Already, the artifact challenged assumptions about mobility and trade in ancient North America. But the most unsettling feature lay at its center. A narrow hole had been drilled straight through the stone from end to end. The interior walls of this hole were smooth, even, and perfectly cylindrical, characteristics consistent with a modern rotary drilling process. Yet the stone was buried deep in undisturbed soil, in a region where no ancient culture is believed to have possessed metal tools, let alone precision drilling technology. This single detail created a contradiction no one could easily resolve. If the hole was drilled using advanced tools, who made them? If it was drilled using primitive methods, how was such precision achieved? No experiment using known prehistoric techniques has successfully replicated the result. Some have suggested the object was a 19th century creation, perhaps dropped or planted. But this explanation fails to account for the depth at which it was found, the absence of modern tool marks, and the lack of motive or documentation. Others argue it was ceremonial, symbolic, or even decorative, yet that does nothing to explain the drilling itself. Today, the stone egg sits behind glass in a museum, labeled cautiously and without interpretation. It is neither classified as evidence of advanced technology nor dismissed as a hoax. It simply exists, quietly contradicting the timeline it was supposed to belong to. If an object this precise can appear in a context where it should not exist, then the question is no longer about the stone itself. The question becomes, how many similar contradictions have we already labeled as impossible and moved past without looking closer? 2. The Tully Monster, a creature that defies evolution. In 1958, an amateur fossil collector named Francis Tully was searching through shale deposits in Illinois when he uncovered something he could not identify. At first, it appeared to be another unusual fossil from the region's ancient seabeds. Illinois, after all, was once covered by shallow seas nearly 300 million years ago. But as scientists examined the specimen more closely, it became clear that this was not simply rare. It was fundamentally out of place. The creature, later named Tullimonstrum gregarium, commonly known as the Tully monster, measured about a foot in length. Its body was soft and tubular, resembling a worm or eel. Extending from its head was a long, flexible proboscis ending in a claw-like mouth lined with small, sharp teeth. But the most disturbing feature was its eyes. Instead of being positioned on the sides of its head, the eyes sat at the ends of a horizontal bar, projecting outward like small lamps on a stalk. No known animal, living or extinct, possessed this configuration. It was not just unusual, it was anatomically isolated. For decades, scientists debated where the Tully monster belonged on the tree of life. Some argued it was an invertebrate related to worms or mollusks. Others suggested it might be a distant relative of squids. Later studies proposed it was a primitive vertebrate, possibly related to early fish. Each theory initially seemed promising, and each eventually collapsed under closer scrutiny. Advanced imaging and microscopic analysis only deepened the mystery. The fossil appeared to contain structures resembling both vertebrate features, such as a notochord, and invertebrate traits, such as segmented soft tissue. It refused to commit to either side of evolution's dividing line, as if nature itself had produced an experiment that did not survive and left behind no descendants. What makes the Tully monster especially unsettling is not just that it is strange, but that it is common. Thousands of specimens have been found in the same region. This was not a rare anomaly. It was a successful species, thriving in its environment for millions of years, before disappearing completely. If evolution is a branching tree, the Tully monster represents a limb that leads nowhere, a form of life that does not neatly connect to what came before or after. And if such a creature existed, thrived even, what does that say about how much of life's history has been lost? Perhaps the story of evolution is not a clean progression, but a record of countless experiments, most of which ended in silence. 3. The Abydos carvings, machines in the stone of ancient Egypt. Deep within the Temple of Seti, in Abydos, one of the most sacred sites in ancient Egypt, there is a section of stone that has unsettled researchers for decades. At first glance, it appears no different from countless other hieroglyphic panels. Royal names, religious symbols, prayers meant to endure beyond death. But when the light strikes these carvings at the right angle, something unexpected emerges. Etched into the stone are shapes that look disturbingly familiar to the modern eye. One resembles a helicopter, complete with a central body and rotor-like structure. Nearby are forms that appear similar to a jet aircraft, and others that evoke the outline of a submarine or armored vehicle. These images are not symbolic in the traditional sense. Their proportions and silhouettes align closely with mechanical designs that would not exist for another 3,000 years. Mainstream Egyptology offers a controlled explanation. According to this view, the carvings are the result of overlapping inscriptions from different dynasties. As older hieroglyphs were chiseled away and replaced, the combined outlines accidentally formed shapes that only resemble modern machines by coincidence. On paper, the explanation is reasonable. Yet standing before the carvings, the resemblance is difficult to dismiss. The lines are deliberate, the contours are balanced, and the images appear in a place of extreme importance. Abydos was not a common temple. It was believed to be the burial site of Osiris, god of the underworld. This was where the Egyptians recorded knowledge intended to survive death itself, messages for eternity, not casual decoration. This raises a troubling question. If these shapes are purely accidental, why do they appear in a sacred context tied to legacy and remembrance? And why do similar mechanical-looking forms appear in ancient art across different cultures, separated by vast distances and time? Some suggest the carvings reflect symbolic interpretations of divine power or mythological vehicles. Others propose a more unsettling possibility, that the Egyptians were depicting something they had seen, memories preserved in stone long after the original context was lost. There is no claim here of ancient helicopters or lost air forces. The real mystery is subtler. It lies in the persistence of imagery that seems to echo advanced technology long before such technology officially existed. If the past was as simple as we believe, these images should not exist at all. So the question remains, are we projecting modern meaning onto ancient symbols, or are these carvings fragments of knowledge from a time we no longer remember? 4. The Oera Linda Book and the Lost Civilization of Atland. In 1867, a man from the Netherlands claimed to have inherited a fragile, crumbling manuscript that would soon divide historians, linguists, and scholars across Europe. Written in an unfamiliar yet strangely recognizable script, the document became known as the Oera Linda Book. What it described was not a regional myth or a family chronicle, but an entire forgotten chapter of human history. According to the manuscript, thousands of years before recorded European civilization, there existed a maritime society called Atland. This culture was said to be highly organized, governed by laws of reason, and led by priestesses rather than kings. Its people navigated vast seas, built coastal settlements, and preserved knowledge through strict moral codes. Then, in a single catastrophic night, Atland was destroyed by a massive flood. The parallel to the Atlantis legend was impossible to ignore. What made the Oera Linda book especially controversial was its timeline. It did not merely add detail to known history, it rewrote it. The manuscript claimed that the Frisian people were descendants of Atland's survivors, and that many European, Norse, Greek, and even Egyptian myths originated from this lost civilization. Gods, symbols, and laws were said to be distorted memories of Atland's teachings, passed down and reshaped over millennia. The academic response was immediate and explosive. Some scholars hailed the book as a revolutionary discovery, a direct record of humanity's forgotten origins. Others condemned it as an elaborate hoax, possibly created to promote nationalism or religious ideology. Within decades, the book was officially dismissed as a forgery. And yet, the mystery did not end there. Despite extensive study, no one has conclusively identified who wrote the manuscript, when it was written, or how its language fits so precisely within ancient Indo-European structures. The linguistic patterns are complex, internally consistent, and difficult to fake without deep knowledge, unavailable to most 19th century authors. No definitive source text has ever been found, and no confession has ever surfaced. This leaves the Oera Linda book in a strange position. rejected yet unresolved, dismissed yet never fully explained. If it is a hoax, it is one of the most sophisticated historical fabrications ever created. And if it is not, then it suggests that Europe's past may extend far deeper than accepted timelines allow. So the question is not whether the book is comfortable to believe. The question is why certain histories are easier to erase than others, and what happens when fragments of a lost story refuse to disappear. 5. The ancient structures beneath London. Beneath the modern streets of London, under layers of asphalt, concrete, and centuries of construction, lies a mystery few people are aware of. It was first encountered in the late 1940s during post-war reconstruction, when workers expanding underground infrastructure broke through an unexpected opening deep below the city's surface. What they found was not a sewer, nor a forgotten Victorian tunnel. It was stone. Carved chambers and passageways emerged from the chalk bedrock, shaped with intention and arranged with an unsettling sense of order. The rooms were not random voids. They followed a clear layout, with corridors aligned almost perfectly to magnetic north. Soot marks on the walls suggested the long-term use of firelight, and tool marks hinted at deliberate excavation rather than natural erosion. At first, archaeologists assumed the structures were Roman or medieval, perhaps an abandoned quarry or an early utility system. But as investigations continued, this explanation began to collapse. The tools associated with the site did not match known Roman methods, and the layout lacked the practical logic of later industrial projects. The most disturbing detail emerged from dating analysis. Samples taken from sediment layers and surface deposits suggested that parts of the structure could predate the Roman occupation of Britain, possibly by thousands of years. Some estimates place the earliest construction far earlier than the accepted founding of London itself. This created a direct contradiction. According to conventional history, London did not exist in any form until long after the last ice age. Yet here was evidence of organized, large-scale human activity beneath one of the most documented cities in the world. Some passages appeared to extend even deeper, sealed by water and centuries of collapse. Their full extent remains unknown. No historical records describe their construction. No legends clearly reference their purpose. They exist without context, buried under a city that unknowingly grew on top of them. If these chambers were built before London had a name, who built them? And why here? Were they shelters, ritual spaces, or something else entirely? And if they were not unique, how many other modern cities stand on forgotten foundations? History often focuses on what rises above ground, but sometimes the most uncomfortable evidence lies below, hidden not because it was meant to be secret, but because time simply moved on. And if London rests on structures older than its own story, what does that say about how many layers of civilization we have already lost? 6. The Baigong metal pipes and impossible infrastructure. On the edge of the Qaidam Basin in northwestern China, near Mount Baigong, lies a site that has quietly unsettled researchers for decades. Embedded in the mountain's rock face and extending toward a nearby saltwater lake is a network of metal pipes, some thick, some thin, some disappearing deep into the earth. At first glance, they resemble the remnants of an industrial system. The problem is their context. There is no record of any civilization in this region possessing the technology to create such structures. The pipes are composed primarily of iron, with traces of silicon, calcium, and other elements. Some are heavily oxidized, while others remain remarkably intact. A number of samples have been tested, with results suggesting extreme age. Estimates that, while debated, have reached into the tens of thousands of years. Even conservative interpretations place them far outside any known industrial activity in the area. What makes the Baigong pipes especially puzzling is their apparent function. Many of them run from the mountain down toward a saltwater lake, as if designed to transport liquid. Others are sealed into the rock at angles that suggest intentional placement, not random geological formation. Natural explanations, such as mineral deposits forming pipe-like shapes, have been proposed, but they struggle to explain the regularity, distribution, and metallic composition of the structures. Equally troubling is the absence of context. There are no nearby ruins of settlements, no tools, no inscriptions, no historical accounts. If these pipes were part of a system, then the system itself has vanished completely, leaving behind only its most durable components. Chinese authorities have at times suggested that the structures may be natural, while others have cautiously acknowledged that their origin remains unclear. The site has even been labeled a tourist curiosity, a classification that conveniently avoids deeper questions. Tall. But the pipes themselves remain embedded in stone, defying simple categorization. If they are natural, they represent a geological process unlike any clearly documented. If they are artificial, they imply a level of engineering that does not align with any known culture in the region's accepted timeline. And this is where the discomfort lies. History relies on continuity, on the idea that technologies evolve visibly from simpler forms. The Baigong pipes suggest something different, that infrastructure can exist without a surviving civilization, without a recorded beginning, and without an understood end. If an engineered system can be stripped of every trace except its skeleton, how many other technologies have vanished without leaving enough behind to be recognized? Perhaps the greatest mystery of Baigong is not what the pipes carried, but how easily an entire chapter of human activity can disappear, leaving only fragments we are unprepared to explain. 7. The Ubaid lizard people figurines. Long before the rise of Sumer, in the fertile lands of ancient Mesopotamia, archaeologists uncovered a collection of figurines unlike anything else from early human history. Dating back to the Ubaid period, around 5000 to 6000 BCE, these small clay statues depict humanoid figures with elongated heads, slanted eyes, and faces that resemble reptiles rather than humans. Some are shown standing upright, others are seated, a few are depicted holding infants. It is this last detail that has made them so difficult to dismiss. The figurines are clearly intentional. Their features are consistent across multiple sites, suggesting a shared symbolic language rather than artistic whim. Yet they do not resemble known depictions of gods, spirits, or ancestors from later Mesopotamian traditions, nor do they align with typical human representations of the time. Mainstream archaeology classifies them cautiously as symbolic or mythological figures, possibly priests wearing ritual masks or stylized representations of deities whose meanings were lost. This explanation is safe, but incomplete. Masks, for example, do not account for the anatomical consistency of the figures, especially the exaggerated cranial shapes and eye structures. And if they represent gods, why do they appear so early before complex pantheons had fully formed? The figurines raise a deeper question about early human symbolism. Ancient cultures often depicted what they feared, revered, or remembered. When animals were worshipped, they were shown with power and clarity. When ancestors were honored, they were depicted as human. The Ubaid figures fall into neither category comfortably. Some researchers argue that the statues represent hybrid beings, part human, part something else, encoded through symbolism we no longer understand. Others suggest they may reflect mythological narratives that predate written language, preserved only in form and posture. What cannot be ignored is their timing. These figurines appear at the very beginning of settled life in the region, when agriculture, permanent dwellings, and early social hierarchy were just emerging. This was a formative moment when belief systems were being established, not inherited. If these figures are symbolic, then they symbolize something foundational. And if they are not meant to be taken literally, then the ideas behind them were important enough to be repeated across generations. The real mystery is not whether these figures depict non-human beings. It is why one of humanity's earliest civilizations chose to remember something that did not look like itself. And if early humans encoded their most important ideas in symbols, what happens when we lose the key needed to read them? 8. The Shigir Idol, a message from the end of the Ice Age. In 1890, deep within a peat bog in the Ural Mountains of Russia, miners uncovered a wooden sculpture unlike anything known at the time. Preserved by the oxygen-poor environment of the bog, the object stood over 5 meters tall when reconstructed. It became known as the Shigir Idol. At first, its age was underestimated. modern testing would later reveal something extraordinary. Radiocarbon dating confirmed that the Shigear idol is approximately 12,000 years old, making it the oldest known wooden sculpture in the world. This places its creation near the end of the last ice age, thousands of years before agriculture, writing, or large-scale settlements were believed to exist in the region. The idol is carved with a series of geometric patterns, zigzags, straight lines, and repeating motifs running along its length. Embedded within these designs are multiple stylized faces, stacked vertically, each with distinct expressions. The carving is precise, deliberate, and symmetrical. This is not decorative art. It is structured. What unsettles researchers is not just the age of the idol, but the complexity of its symbolism. Societies of the time are typically described as small groups of hunter-gatherers, focused primarily on survival. Yet the Shigear idol suggests abstract thinking, symbolic communication, and the transmission of ideas across generations. Some archaeologists propose that the carvings represent a cosmology, a map of the world divided into layers, spirits, or realms. Others suggest it may encode myths, laws, or warnings. There is even debate over whether the faces represent ancestors, deities, or concepts rather than individuals. No written language exists to guide interpretation. Whatever message the idol carried, it was meant to be understood visually, not read. This implies a shared cultural knowledge, stable enough to persist without writing. The idol also implies organization. To create an object of this scale and precision, there must have been skilled artisans, planning, and a reason to invest significant time and resources into a symbolic structure rather than immediate survival. If people 12,000 years ago were capable of this level of abstraction, then our assumptions about the cognitive limits of early humans are incomplete. The Shigear idol does not rewrite history by offering answers. It does something more unsettling. It demonstrates that complex thought existed far earlier than expected, and that entire symbolic systems may have risen and vanished without leaving a trace. If meaning once existed in these lines and faces, then the loss is not the object itself, but the understanding it was meant to carry forward. 9. The Longyu Caves, a megaproject with no history. In 1992, a farmer in Zhejiang Province, China, decided to drain a small pond that locals believed was bottomless. When the water receded, it revealed the entrance to a vast man-made cavern. What followed was one of the most puzzling archaeological discoveries in modern China, the Longyu Caves. As exploration continued, researchers uncovered 24 enormous underground chambers, each carved entirely from solid rock. The caves are massive, some reaching 30 meters in height, and structurally precise. Their walls, ceilings, and pillars are covered with parallel chisel marks, evenly spaced and perfectly aligned, suggesting a coordinated and systematic excavation process. What makes the Longyu Caves extraordinary is not only their scale, but their uniformity. Each cave follows a similar architectural logic, yet none are connected to one another. The volume of stone removed is estimated in the millions of cubic meters, implying years, perhaps decades, of sustained labor. And yet, there is no historical record of their construction. China possesses one of the most continuous and detailed historical traditions on Earth. Dynasties recorded floods, wars, harvests, and building projects with remarkable consistency. And still, there is no mention of the Longyu Caves, no inscriptions, no tools left behind, no indication of their purpose. The caves were not quarries. The removed stone has never been located. They were not tombs. No burials were found. They were not dwellings. There is no evidence of long-term habitation. Even their function remains speculative. Some propose they were ceremonial spaces. Others suggest they were storage chambers, military shelters, or remnants of a forgotten state project. But every explanation encounters the same obstacle: scale. The effort required to carve these chambers exceeds what would be expected for any of these uses, especially without leaving a trace in written history. Dating the caves has proven equally difficult. Without organic material, precise timelines are elusive. Estimates vary widely, but even conservative assumptions place them well outside the narrative of known local construction. The Longyou Caves represent something archaeology struggles with: evidence of extreme human effort without cultural context. If a civilization was capable of organizing labor on this scale, it should have left behind more than empty stone. Unless, of course, what we are seeing is not the beginning of a story, but its final, silent remains. And if entire megaprojects can vanish from memory, what else has been erased simply because nothing survived to explain it? 10. The granite boxes of the Serapeum at Saqqara. Beneath the sands of Saqqara, near the step pyramid of Djoser, lies an underground complex that has challenged assumptions about ancient engineering for over a century. Known as the Serapeum, this vast network of tunnels houses a series of enormous stone boxes carved from solid granite. Each one weighs between 70 and 100 tons. Their purpose, according to traditional interpretation, was to hold the sacred Apis bulls of ancient Egypt. At first, this explanation seems sufficient, but the details tell a different story. The granite boxes are not roughly shaped containers. They are precision objects. Their interior walls are flat to an extreme degree, their corners meet at near-perfect right angles, and the surfaces show a level of polish that rivals modern machine work. Granite, one of the hardest stones available, is notoriously difficult to shape even with contemporary tools. Yet these boxes were carved over 3,000 years ago. Even more puzzling is their location. Each massive box was transported deep underground through narrow tunnels with limited clearance. The logistics alone are staggering. Moving, positioning, and sealing objects of this size would require advanced planning, coordinated labor, and technical control far beyond what is usually attributed to the period. Tool marks raise further questions. The precision suggests methods more consistent with saws, drills, or grinding techniques capable of maintaining uniform pressure and alignment, tools that do not appear in the archaeological record of ancient Egypt. Some argue that the Egyptians achieved this through patience and simple tools over long periods of time, but this explanation begins to strain when confronted with the consistency across all the boxes. Precision on this scale is not accidental, and repetition implies a controlled process, not improvisation. There is also the question of intent. If the boxes were symbolic or ritual, why invest such extreme accuracy where it would never be seen? If they were functional, what function required tolerances so exact that even small errors were eliminated? The Serapeum does not announce itself loudly. It does not depict machines or strange beings. Instead, it presents something quieter and perhaps more unsettling: undeniable evidence of technical capability that exceeds our expectations. If ancient Egypt was capable of this level of precision, then our understanding of its technological limits is incomplete. And if such knowledge existed, the question is not why it disappeared, but how much of it vanished without leaving instructions behind. History is not wrong, only incomplete. Each of these discoveries stands alone, separated by geography, culture, and time. A stone egg in North America, an unclassifiable creature in ancient seas, mechanical shapes carved into Egyptian temples, lost texts, buried cities, unexplained infrastructure, symbolic figures, forgotten megaprojects, and engineering precision that should not exist, at least not according to the timelines we trust. Taken individually, they are labeled anomalies. Together, they form a pattern. That pattern suggests history is not a smooth ascent from ignorance to knowledge, but a fragile sequence of rises and collapses. Knowledge can emerge, reach extraordinary heights, and then disappear, erased by catastrophe, neglect, or the simple passing of time. What survives is not the full story, but fragments. This does not mean the past was populated by myths or fantasies. It means our framework for understanding the past is limited by what remains. When context is lost, even real achievements begin to look impossible. Archaeology is not failing when it encounters these mysteries. It is doing exactly what it should, revealing the edges of what we know. The danger lies not in unanswered questions, but in the refusal to ask them. Because if we assume our ancestors were incapable, we stop looking for what they might have achieved. And one day, if our own civilization collapses, future generations may stand over our ruins with the same confusion. wondering how so much knowledge could vanish, leaving behind only silent stone and unanswered questions. History does not warn us with words, it warns us with what it leaves behind.